I'm just circling back to that.
I'm
circling back to that social media post of pros fact or fake news. It's just that kid that just like
fuck that kid, all right?
Welcome to Rogue Bogue's post Game 5 podcast. Pro had stuck with our guy Landale out in Houston yesterday.
Jesus.
In a cyclone, flight cancelled, so we missed the pod yesterday, which worked out well because we could at least discuss Game 5 and it being 3-2, which we'll get to later. But Pro, nice and safe. Didn't have to fly through some turbulence. And
Bogues, what a 24 hours, man. So we finish our workout on court like, I don't know, 11:30. So, no, 12:30. So I'm at the airport, supposed to fly out at 4:30, at the airport by like 2 o'clock. All good. So I'm good, waiting, just about to go, was in the American Airlines lounge, and then they just start delaying it, like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, another hour. I'm like, oh, fuck. So then there's like this weather. It was something out of a horror movie. It was like blacker than black. It was like charcoal in the sky, thunder, lightning. I haven't seen anything like that. I'm like, this ain't going to be fucking good. I start texting you and Trent. I'm like, yeah, I was thinking about doing it fucking from you said, hey, can you do it from the lounge? I'm like, fuck it. Might as well. Then it went from like 8:30 to 10:30 to 2:30. I'll tell you what, that buffet, that Admiral's Lounge went from Admiral to fucking private real quick when I was done with it. So yeah, it was a fucking long, then I had to stay over. Yeah, $300, hotel, Ubers. I'll tell you what, they bend you the fuck over with those Ubers. They know exactly when you're fucked. It's like 10:30, nothing. I mean, there's nothing. Everybody's canceled. Everybody's pissed. I go to do an Uber, and it's like $75 for like a 8-mile trip. And then the next day when I did the Uber back to the airport, it was like 30. So they fucking exactly
Isn't this,
know.
baby? That's it. Got to know your personnel, KYP.
Without doubt. And I gladly paid it.
If you were still in the NBA at that point, Pro, you would have flown straight through that fucking cyclone because I know we did.
Without question.
It would have been like, hey, we got a game tomorrow. We don't cancel games in the NBA. I remember that. Told the story before. We played Memphis one night. 5 p.m. before tip. That hotel's across the street. You just hear a tornado alarm siren go off in downtown, like, oh shit. And then they're like, oh, is a game going on? Yeah, the arena's a safe place to be because it's concrete. So we go play the game. They don't let fans in. It's just media. So it was like bare stands. And we drive out of the tunnel at like 10 p.m. and there's like a rubbish bin flying in the air. We're like, wait, we're going to the airport? They're like, yeah, it's passing through. We'll be fine. Remember Desmond Bane, one of our veterans, is just like, I'm not getting on that fucking plane. This is bullshit. We should not be flying. We sat on the tarmac for like 2 hours and then flew out and didn't have a problem, but the NBA will not cancel a flight. They don't like doing that.
Well, two things, Boats. A, if a tornado went through that fucking downtown Memphis, would anyone notice it? Secondly, you're safer in the eye of the tornado than you are in fucking walking in downtown Memphis. So, yeah, two little tidbits of information about that friendly confines of fucking Memphis.
Good old downtown Memphis.
Oh,
all right. So some news actually in free agency and some trades. The Orlando Magic and the Memphis Grizzlies just recently closed a trade for KCP, for Desmond Bane, and Cole Anthony. On face value, you look at this and you're like, wait, wow, great deal for Orlando. And then you realize they'd prestied him and got four first-round picks out of him as well. Memphis did, which then makes the trade questionable, especially when you look back to the Luka trade. I saw some memes of this trade, 4 first-round picks for Desmond Bane, 0 for Luka Doncic. Which makes things interesting. Or 1, sorry, yeah, but barely anything. But they get Orlando is sending Memphis number 16 pick in the current draft coming up. Phoenix's first round pick in 26, Magic 28 unprotected first rounder, and a 2030 unprotected first. Interesting. I mean, I love Desmond Bane as a player. Hasn't been the healthiest. Generally plays about 70% of the games. But Orlando looks like they're trying to tool up. They get a better version of KCP, in my opinion, in Desmond Bane, a younger version that gives you much more scoring, very similar players defensively with their acumen at that end of the floor. I think that Orlando improves in the immediate, but they have sold a little bit of the future to improve today. And for Memphis, I don't hate it neither. I mean, they get KCP still going to be a valuable piece, role player for them, and they get some scoring off the bench in Cole Anthony. So this is one of those trades where if you didn't have the 4 first-round picks there, that you kind of see it as a pretty even trade, but I think the picks lopsided a little bit towards Memphis.
Yeah, Bogues, my thing, so Presti got, I mean, not only did Presti get 4 first-round picks plus pick swaps from the Clippers, he also got the MVP in the trade. The Luka trade, which was in my opinion really bad, and many other people's opinion really bad. But the one thing is, at least they got Anthony Davis. Now, they should have got more, no doubt about it. Now, this trade, look, Orlando was historically bad from shooting the ball this year. If you want Banchero, and Wagner, you need shooting around them. And they had very little to no shooting. They had Gary Harris, and KCP was just okay this year. And they really needed shooting. Now, the 4 picks, look, if you do your job, and I feel as though Orlando's a top 4 team in the East if they're healthy. This year, they just weren't good enough because of the injuries, and they just couldn't really turn the corner with it. But you look at it, they really need shooting. Desmond Bane, in my opinion, is probably like the 10th. I have him ranked like 10th or 11th in the league at shooting guards. He's a guy who shoots 40% from 3. Doesn't really create a hell of a lot offensively as far as like isolation and creating his own shot. You already got 2 guys that do that, so you don't need him to do that. You need him to just be that 3rd guy to swing to, could score when those guys are off or hurt or out of the game, and he could produce some offense. The 4 first-round picks is a big deal, but if you do your job, those picks are going to be from 18 to 25, and they really need this piece now. And you don't really know what ownership saying to the front office as far as is that chair getting a little bit hot if they don't win playoff games. So if you're sitting there as a GM, you're like, hey, we need to make a move. It is a lot, no doubt about it, and they're unprotected. Anytime you hear unprotected, everyone's antennas go up. But Orlando needed this piece. And you're not going to acquire a guy like Bane through free agency. They don't have the money to do it because they obviously have their money on Banchero and Wagner and a couple other places. On the Memphis, and I like the trade for Orlando. It is a little bit, those picks are a little bit steep, but I don't think if they do their job in the next few years, I don't think it's going to be a huge deal for that. Now, on the Memphis side, look, you don't know where Memphis is going to go. Are you gonna, in the next month or 2, are you going to try to trade off Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson, just go full rebuild? I doubt it. But what happens is Ja Morant can't play over 55 games a year in the last few years. So it gives you a little bit more depth they already got Scottie Pippen Jr. Cole Anthony's a nice little backup, and KCP's a solid player. You get 2 players for 1. Yeah, you lost shooting in this deal, but you have 2 guards that could play minutes for you in your rotation, and it's a good deal there. I like the trade for Orlando. I like it for Memphis in some ways as well. Obviously, you get the 4 picks and the pick swap. So it'll be an interesting deal. But Orlando needed it shooting. I think I saw somewhere, Bogues, where they're the worst shooting team in the last decade. So
yeah, they'll pour from 3. They'll pour, and even Banchero, their star, likes to get on the block and the elbows.
Can't shoot.
Yeah, so it's tricky. So it makes sense, and they get a tough physical guy at the defensive end. They don't lose a step there, which is kind of their identity. They're a gritty team. They like to guard. But I think the 4 first-round picks for me swing it to Memphis. Also, Steven Adams goes down the Bogut school of never be a free agent. That's what I did. Good. I was never a free agent. Always put those extensions in front of me, negotiate them up a little bit, and take that to the bank. Especially considering a couple of my injuries, it worked out very well. But he signs a 3-year, $39 million extension. Now, people will look at him having a subpar year, only 14 minutes a night in the regular season, but I think his value was shown during the playoff series. It can be really dominant at the offensive end, especially the offensive glass, patrolling the paint, physicality. Don't know what this does for our guy Jock. This probably hurts him a little bit. He's on he's got a team option for roughly, I think it's $10 odd million or something like that, or just under.
8. I think it's 8.
That's 8 he's on a 3-year, was it 3-year 38 or something like that? 3-year 36, 4-year 36. Sorry,
432. Yeah,
well, 32. There you go. So he's more than likely probably going to move on from Houston, considering now that they've extended Adams. They could still keep him theoretically at a renegotiated deal at a lower number, but it will be interesting to see what happens there. I believe they've got till. Do you know the date on that? I think it's right before
July 1 or
right before free
July
agency
1.
opens, right? Yeah, I think it's like the end of this month. So he's got a nervous 2 or 3 weeks to figure out where he's going to be. But Adams one is good, but also a risk. There have been some injury concerns there.
Yeah, for me with Adams is the health. I mean, this year, very rarely until the end of the year, he really couldn't play back-to-back games. Not back-to-backs, Monday and Tuesday, but actually playing 2 games in a row. So, I mean, they had a good little thing going with him playing and then Jock playing and him playing and Jock playing. So they really do need another guy to really, going forward, to be able to shore up, because those things usually don't get better, Bogues. You could do some things to sort of help it out. It's sort of like, it's sort of like your mechanic coming up to you, your engine's about to fucking crap out, and you're like, we could put some $5 oil in it and this little bottle of this stuff, and we can get it going. That's the only problem for me. Like, going forward, it's not a huge contract. It's still under the league average. Now, the league average is $14 million. So, you sign him to a cap-friendly deal, but how's the health going to be long-term is the only question you should have. Look, in the playoffs, he was good, rebound the ball, he could pass. He's not a shot blocker, but to me, it's just the health. Look, they know his ins and outs. I mean, the only option a couple other options they could have is go after some guys like a Brook Lopez, but I mean, they've been around him for a couple of years now, a year and some change. So they figure out they sort of know the good and the bad and the ugly with it. But I just worry about the health and for the Jock deal. Yeah, I mean, look, he played that perfect role this year for them as far as like, when they needed him to play, he played and he produced. But now you got a lot of money sort of tied up in centers. So I don't know what they're going to do. I have no idea what they're going to do going forward. I know that they're in some talks with Durant trade. So, obviously, if that's the case, then Jock's could be a contract that they throw in there. I have no idea, but it'll be an interesting couple of weeks for sure.
Definitely. All right. Some funny items. Did you see the fans in Indiana? They're dressed up as Pro.
I did. Dumb and Dumber.
That was quite good. So for those not familiar, pretty funny photo online. Dumb and Dumber. They dressed as Dumb and Dumber, and one had Stephen A. Smith's head on their chest, and the other one had Perkins, which was funny. Stephen A. Smith, not too entertained by the NBA Finals. KD posted a photo of him playing solitaire during live play. Stephen A. Smith then said it was during a timeout, where KD then doubled down and said, no, it wasn't. It was during live play. So imagine having, you're in the NBA Finals, the pinnacle of the NBA, and you're one of the biggest broadcasters that should be following the game, that criticizes every man under the sun for the smallest indiscretion, and then you're playing solitaire during the NBA Finals, Pro. Very, very interesting stuff there.
Look, I'm a world-class shit talker on Ballbuster, and I know that I open myself up. Any word I say, it opens myself. If I'm breaking your balls or someone else's balls, that I know that I'm going to get it right back. He's got to know, with all the shit he talks on a daily basis, that if that thing gets out, I mean, look, is it a huge deal? Probably not. But all the shit talking
you're paid to report everything, though, every detail.
Yeah.
You get to nitty-gritty conversations. You're in an arena that's on a slant with probably 5,000 people sitting behind you. Someone's going to see you on solitaire.
Hey, Bogues. It could have been a lot worse. He could have been on a lot more worse websites than that.
Yep.
So, hey, like he should take a knee on that and be like, you know what? I lost 5 yards on this. Let's just deal with that.
Yeah, I lost a hand. I didn't lose my money with an OnlyFans account. That's for sure. NBA Fight Club. Dwight Howard versus Lance Stevenson in whatever the hell game they were playing. It's funny also. Do you know what Dwight's team was called?
Big Three.
The Big Three. Do you know what Dwight's team was called?
No.
The LA riots. It just fits in well with the political landscape over there in the US right now with all the riots.
Without doubt.
They got in a fight, and then you had DeMarcus Cousins absolutely lose his mind in Puerto Rico. That is a video for the ages. I think probably not a country you want to get in a fight fans with. I don't think he had a fan. You watch the video, DeMarcus. Something happened with a foul call. Fan sitting courtside was doing the I'm crying face to DeMarcus. You're a baby. DeMarcus went up to him and grabbed his penis right in front of the guy's face. And then the guy double birded him. And then all hell broke loose. It looked like as DeMarcus was getting popcorn and drinks thrown out of him, getting escorted out, looked like he swung and missed and hit a cop. He didn't punch him, luckily. It did knock the cop over, though. Don't know where that's all finished. But, I mean, you got to know better if you're DeMarcus Cousins in a foreign country, somewhat foreign country. I guess people classify it as a state of the US at times. But, yeah, not the place you want to do. But all these, former NBA players just chill out, like especially Dwight and Lance. It's like, fuck, are we really, you guys are, almost 40 years old. Why? Why is my question. Then you got the Brandon Jennings side of things, former teammate of mine, the Lou Williams one-on-ones, this is the new era of where we're going, of retired guys playing one-on-ones and calling each other out. It's like, man, it's just getting a bit too much, bro.
Yeah, and then Steven Jackson, getting into a fight with somebody as well.
I didn't see that one.
So, they had to get it separated. They had him in the locker room screaming and yelling and screaming as well. So I don't
one
exactly
of the guys
know
on his team.
I'm not sure, Bogues. I think it's somebody from the other team.
Trent, you want to look that
and then
up?
he just he went nuts. Yeah, he went nuts. Bogues, I mean, look, the big three is like the Harlem Globetrotters meets the WWF meets NBA Housewives of the NBA. Like, it's just, you know what I'm saying? It's a triangle of terror with that stuff. And that's what they do. And then when you're older and you're not making that money anymore, and you don't really have that fame anymore, this is where it is. It's the big three. You either play overseas or go to China, or you play in the big three and something like this, or
it's funny, Pro.
Call somebody out
after what's funny, after I retired, I got an email invite to the big three.
Of course you did.
Just like,
of course you did.
Like, can you imagine me in that shit? That wouldn't end well.
No, Bogues, no, I cannot. I could not. You'll yell at split action. The guy will open up a fucking beer and just start drinking. But yeah, Bogues, I mean, it is what it is. The DeMarcus Cousins thing, regardless of what he does, he loses because we know his rap sheet and what he's been doing. He did his whole career. And so if he does what he does, it's like, all right, it's DeMarcus, right? And it's just another chapter in the book. But also as a man, you got that guy coming in your face. You got to be, I don't know, you got to be better. But then again, the guy's doing that in your face, and you're like, Jesus Christ! I'm in fucking Puerto Rico at the end of my career.
Imagine playing that Greek final series, and DeMarcus was in that game.
Oh, no chance.
It's
no chance.
And what's funny about DeMarcus is like we had a real I wouldn't say I hated him, but we had a rivalry when I was in Golden State. They were the team up the road, and but when I was his teammate, he was actually a really fun guy to be around off the floor. Like he's got that white line fever. He gets on the floor and it's like big chip on his shoulder and, scally face. But off the floor, he's hilarious. Like he's just making jokes the whole time. Great vibe to be around. And then on the court, he's completely different,
Rajon Rondo swears by him. He says he's a great dude. And you watch him like interact with people. And I was around him when he was in high school at some of the like the Brand Jordan Classic in New York. I was around him, and I was around him a couple other things. I mean, he's a good dude, but it's one of those things, Bogues, it's just he always reverts back. He's always 2 seconds from doing something like that, and he can't help himself. It's just I call it defective genes. Those guys just are radioactive when it comes to stuff like that, and they just can't get out of harm's way. It's just he's always into something. And yeah, he's not a bad guy. We've been around those players, Bogues, our whole careers. I've been around it for 30 years. And those type of guys were like, you got to literally put baby gloves on and walk them places. Or, and literally lock them in a dungeon until it's time to play and lock them back in the dungeon. Or something's going to fucking happen. Either off the court, on the court, in practice, in a workout. You're always like walking on eggshells around it because he's 2 seconds from doing something.
Yeah, it's just hard to see when you're had such a great a pretty good NBA career. Very talented player, superstar player in Sacramento. And then I hate seeing players go overseas and then this kind of stuff happens. It just, you kind of feel bad for him in a way. Like you said, though, a lot of their own doing, but you just hate to see them exit the game from that pathway. Yeah. Finally, the annual LeBron James cryptic post during NBA Finals is here again this season, bro. I think we're at, how many NBA Finals has he missed now in a row since the Lakers COVID, I think? 5?
What, 4?
4 or 5.
5.
Every year since then, he's done something during the NBA Finals to create a PR storm, and this time he's posted himself a meme type, cartoonish type thing of him at a press conference insinuating that he might retire. So it's now an annual thing. If he's not playing in the NBA Finals, he needs a bit of attention during NBA Finals because he's not in it, which I just find absolutely hilarious. But it's always time during this time of the year, bro, which is quite funny.
You know, Bogues, it's just players in general, but mostly superstar players. They all, like, if they're not in the limelight, they got to try to find their way in the limelight. And he's been in the limelight since he was like 13, 14. So it's like, it's always got to be something, you know, to continue to get in. I didn't see it. I didn't even know about it. But there's no fucking chance he's going to retire without having like that whole swan song for 82 games of like, you know, being celebrated, gifts and things like that. There's no chance.
The Paul Pierce treatment, to quote great Draymond Green.
Paul Pierce treatment.
That Kobe farewell tour. Okay, finals. So we are currently at 3-2. Game 3, very swingy game, pro. OKC up in the first quarter, Indy up in the second quarter, OKC up in the third quarter. Indy storm home 32-18 in the fourth. Mathurin 27 points off the bench. Halliburton 22, 11, and 9. And you're thinking, holy shit, 2-1. Indiana looked really good in that game. Game 4 there for the taking. Game 4, Indiana won the first 3 quarters. They were up by 7 or 8 throughout. It just felt like they could not get that vital last few jabs to just get it out to like a mid-teens, 13, 14, 15 points. Couldn't get it there. Caruso, SGA gets a lot of pub because he had 35 in this game, and SGA did close this game on one of the all-time greatest runs in NBA history. But I think Caruso, his threes when it was 7 or 8 points and it was going to maybe dangerously get to 11 or 12, he hit some key threes during that period. Big threes. He finishes the game with 20 points, 5 3 balls, 5 steals. SGA with 35, and OKC storm home in the fourth, 31-17. And then we go to game 5, which is a game of runs again. It kind of felt like the opposite of game 4, where Indy was up by 7 or 8 the whole game. This time OKC was up 7, 8, 9, 10. Indiana would claw it back. And Indiana had their chance in the third. I think they cut it to 4 at one point or 3. But OKC just came up with some huge plays, some key steals. I thought Indiana were pretty poor defensively in that first half. They let a lot of stuff, transition threes wide open for guys, transition layups, transition dunks. They then fixed that in the second half, but then their offense sputtered. They just couldn't get it going offensively. OKC were pretty solid throughout this game. SGA 31-10. And OKC, when they shoot the 3 ball at this clip, they shot it at 44, just under 44%. They started, I think, 5 for 8 in the game. They're very, very hard to beat because they're such a good paint touch team, because they can live by the mid-range. If they're knocking their 3 down, which they, funnily enough, Pro, didn't do in game 4. They set an NBA record, I believe, 3 made threes for an NBA Finals win. It's the first time it's happened, I think, in NBA history, with the 3-point line. But they found that game 5 win and ended up winning comfortably at the end. It is 3-2. It is going back to Indiana. Give me your run through of those 3 games, Pro, and your thoughts.
I'll just go overall on it, Bogues. I think that, look, if we've learned anything from Indiana, is you can't take them lightly. And those guys are going to fight to the end. There's no lead that's safe. Even tonight, when they were down, 16-18, and then they found themselves down like 3 or 4. And it came right back into it. The defense of Oklahoma City has been really good, at an elite level, pressuring the ball, forcing turnovers, just forcing those guys to make mistakes. Their defense has been really, really elite. They go bigger with Hartenstein tonight. and Hartenstein tonight. I really like that lineup of those two bigs. I think they play really well together. I think that the one thing about the historically bad 3-point shooting night that Oklahoma City had, I think they found the formula of like, let's just keep attacking Indiana and getting to the rim and getting to the rim and getting to the rim. And, Jalen Williams, Alex Caruso, not only the mid-range shots and things from Shea, but also being able to attack the rim and just get in transition, get on the open floor really was in cutting. The cutting was great from Caruso, Williams, Jalen Williams. It was really good. I thought it was interesting tonight when, Rick, had that big thing where he defended Scott Foster for, after the game the other night. And I think Rick was, totally in the right about it. I think people are a little bit too harsh on Foster on those things. And I thought he's been reffing really, really well in the playoffs. So he goes from that where, he's making every referee in the league misty eye to wanting to fight a referee within like 5 minutes of the game tonight. I thought that was great. But he was right that he needed to set the tone because, they were getting, Oklahoma City was getting away with a few fouls that they weren't calling. But hey, look, I just think it's one of those things where Indiana's fighting tough. Oklahoma City is just, finding other ways to impact winning. It's not just Shea scoring 35 and everybody else scoring 6, 5, 8, 2. It's, Jalen Williams, getting out in transition, cutting, driving to the rim. It's Alex Caruso making shots, Lou Dort making shots, and those guys are just making plays. It's been a really good series, Bogues. I just think that both teams are engaged. Both coaches are doing a really good job in timeouts, and it's just one of those things where, look, Indiana had a lead, 2-1. It was a pivotal game 4 where they could have closed it out. If they would have won that, there would have been no chance of Oklahoma City coming back. And then Oklahoma City just responds. It's one of those things in the playoffs. You've been through it, Bogues. I've been through it too. Through the clients that I've worked with, you get punched in the mouth in the playoffs. You got to make adjustments. You got to come to play. And it's game by game by game by game. And 1 minute you think you're going to be winning the finals, and the next minute a team ties it up. I remember working for Kobe, 3-2 going back to LA, Boston up in 2010. No one thought that LA was going to win the next 2 games, and if Perkins doesn't get hurt, it's a different ball game. So, look, Indiana was riding those highs most of the playoffs, and this finals they were really close to trying to close this thing out, but. Look, they go back home, next game. They could definitely win that one and force a game 7. I don't think their spirit's broken. The thing that they got to worry about, though, Turner's been hurt a little bit. He's been banged up this series, but also Halliburton, that lower leg deal that he's been dealing with tonight, he was very ineffective for most of the game. So hopefully he could, get rested up by the next one.
Who do you have from here? Not who do you have? Can Indiana salvage game 6? You think this is over in 6 or you think it goes 7?
I think it all depends on Halliburton's health. I think if Halliburton's not there, I don't think they have a chance. Because, look, he does disappear sometimes offensively. He's not really an aggressive scoring, player. He's more of a Jason Kidd, Magic Johnson type where, setting everybody else up, getting out in transition, can score. He's more of a scorer than Kidd was, but if he can't play game 6, I think Oklahoma City could close it out. It's really hard to close out series on the road. It hasn't been done a ton of times, but I think if fully healthy, I think Indiana could find a way to win. It will be close and it'll be a dogfight, but I don't think they have a chance if it goes game 7. So I got OKC from here. I think Indiana, if Halliburton plays, can win.
Yeah, I'm going OKC, wiping them out in game 6. I think they've found it. They've found the formula, the momentum shift. I think Halliburton, they need more from him, but also the system's predicated on not having the ball stick. So they're not really an isolation team. They never have been. Their best isolation guy probably is Siakam, where you can throw it to him, elbow, block, and let him go to work. I don't think Halliburton, that hasn't been his game. He's a pass, cut, move, relocate, pick and roll, handoff. That's been his strength, and he's not an SGA where you can give him the ball, clear the troops out, and let him go to work. So it does make things interesting there.
Yeah, I do agree with that. The thing about it though is, Bogues, and we talked about Siakam in the past about being probably the best scorer on the team as far as a guy who could just put his head down and score it. But if you want to be a superstar, and I think Halliburton's sort of playing himself into that, for sure, especially with his passing. But like at times when those guys go on an 8-0 run or 10-0 run or whatnot, you got to be able to be that guy that just like silences the crowd. And yeah, you're right, they do move the ball, but even teams that move the ball a lot, when teams go on runs, you give it to the best player and let him work. So that's the one thing I think that Halliburton does disappear a little bit. And like you said, maybe it's the system, maybe it's truly just the system, but
he's not a traditional. We spoke about this. He's not a traditional max superstar. Throw him the ball, get you a bucket when you need it. He's just not that guy. He's very system orientated, and that's where he's elite. So, like you said, in these games where it does bog down in the last 3 minutes, it's very hard to get movement-based offense to be consistently effective, especially because the refs swallow their whistle generally late in those games too.
Yeah, and I think the size of Hartenstein really hurts, Indiana. It gives him a lot more offensive rebounding opportunities. He's a tough matchup. He screens the hell out of you. He hasn't done much in the short roll in this series, but it's mostly offensive rebounding, getting out in transition, rim running, screening, and things like that. And then getting to the rim more and how valuable that is versus just shooting threes or just shooting mid-range shots. So I think the cutting, getting to the rim, that's probably worth about 1.4 points per possession, per shot, which is a huge number. And that's bigger than the three. That's more valuable than the three. That's more valuable, obviously, than the mid-range. Getting to the rim and getting to the free throw line are two really valuable shots that if you continue to do it over and over and over and over and over again, it's going to be really hard to stop. I think that, and then the physicality of playing Hartenstein versus playing a smaller lineup, to start the game, I think is really in their favor. Like you said, I think they found it. I think they experimented with playing Wallace and going smaller early in the series, and I think they're pretty set on maybe, in my opinion, they're probably just set on playing bigger and more physical, and then wearing Indiana down.
Yeah, and shout out to Jalen Williams as well. We can't not mention that he had 40 tonight on a really good clip.
Oh, he was ridiculous
14
tonight.
For 25, made a lot of big shots for him. Indiana, Rick went away from Thomas Bryant, which was interesting, and played Tony Bradley, who hasn't seen much action even in the season. Played him a little bit in this series. Hadn't seen much of him. Didn't really help too much, but went to just try something a little bit different. But didn't work out for Indiana. It'll be interesting to see what adjustments, if any, Indiana can make. I don't think they're going to change their starting lineup by the looks of things. Maybe bring Toppin in to counter that double big, and maybe put him in at the three and go a bit bigger. Siakam 3, him 3, hybrid, a bit more size and length. I don't know, but they'll look at the tape and look to try to maybe change something up, unless they just think, you know what, we just had a bad game. OKC shot it well, and we think we can salvage this at home and put pressure back on them in 7. So let's hope for basketball's sake it goes to 7. But I think I'm picking that this goes 6. You're saying it goes 7 if Indiana are healthy, and then OKC win, correct?
Yeah, okay. That's what I'm going with.
Fair enough.
What I'll go with.
All right, useful or useless. Speaking about ball movement, OKC's 10 assists were the fewest in a finals win in Game 4 since the 1948 Bullets. Useful or useless?
It's pretty useful if you're talking about something that's about 80 years old, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's useful considering they were super clunky. How they still got that win when you pick up the stat sheet is mind-boggling. So credit to OKC. They can. The beautiful thing about them, for a young team, surprisingly, they can win ugly, which you don't often attribute to younger teams. SGA, 15 points in the final 5 minutes, or it was actually under 5 minutes, 4 minutes and 40-something, were the most since 1971 NBA Finals game.
It's pretty useful. Do you have the person who did it, Bogut, in 71?
I don't. I think it was someone from the Blazers. I don't know. The footage is almost in black and white still, so I didn't watch it. But but yeah, SGA. I mean that run, he was still having a decent game, but he completely took that game over, and that was Indiana just could not stomp them out and put a foot to the throat, kept them close, and then that's when we talk about having a genuine superstar that says, We've got a chance right now. It's a close game. I'm going to take it over, and they go 31-17, I think, in that fourth quarter. OKC is also the second youngest team in NBA Finals history, Pro. Their average age of 25.56. Number 1 was the Portland Trailblazers in 76-77. Useful, useless.
Walton, those guys. That was useful for sure. That was a hell of a team they had. Well, like Bill Walton and those guys. But yeah, it's useful, man. They're young. And, the thing about young, we talked about it before the playoffs start, is to go through struggles in some series and put your backs against the wall. And that's what makes you good. I mean, you can't just flame out of playoffs to be young and then just all of a sudden you're old and everything's going to be good. At some point, you're going to have to go through some struggles. Now, struggles doesn't mean losing early in the playoffs and whatnot. It's just going through some struggles. Look, they had to go through it with Denver. They had to go through it. They went through it with Denver. They went through it with Minnesota. They had to fight their way through it. And now they had to fight their way through down 2-1 and backs against the wall. So, yeah, I mean, that youth and everybody wanted to kill them for being young. And I guess that's just the way we are today. But, yeah, it's good to see that they got punched in the mouth and they fought back.
Yeah. Spells danger for the rest of the league. You got that young of a roster, and you're already this good, historically young. Yeah, I think their future is very bright. They're going to have sustained success for a long, long time. So well done to the organisation. Touching on your Scott Foster comments, Pro. So let's got a nice, useful, useless one for you. That he gets a bit of a hard time. They call him I think his nickname is the Extender. He's a very good extending series. But let me read this to you. These are numbers don't lie, Pro. Foster is the official who received 134 phone calls from disgraced referee Tim Donaghy between October 2006 and April 2007, the same period where Donaghy was alleged to have been given information as to how to referee games for betting. That was the same period during which Donaghy admitted to betting on NBA games. The report said that Donaghy called Foster more than any other ref, and that he didn't call any other official more than 13 times. So him and Foster had spoken 134 times on the call. The records show Donaghy making several calls to Foster on the days of games. Calls not going for longer than 2 minutes. So I'm sure it's how's the family, they're talking about the weather maybe, and then that was it, Pro. So no more than 2 minutes. The report also said that when Donaghy called Foster, he mostly used the phone that he dedicated to gambling-related phone calls, and the phone calls.
Oh, so he had a
burner.
He had a burner. He had a
burner gambling phone, and the phone call stopped. The phone call stopped abruptly when Donaghy said he stopped gambling. Pro, useful or useless?
I mean, that number is a huge number, Bogue. So
134 phone calls between the two. The next highest number between any official and Tim Donaghy was 13.
I think it's 133 more phone calls that you and I have had, Bogue. So that's a pretty good number.
Yeah. We're texters though. Wow. We're millennials.
We're texters. Yeah, we're big.
That's some amazing numbers, Pro. And look, I love a good conspiracy theory like the best of them. But where there's smoke, there's fire, and you knuckle down in some of that data and those numbers. My
only thing on the Foster thing, Bogues, because I've heard that. I definitely heard that. I think I read Donaghy's book too, and he mentions that. My thing is, like, when the people are getting called in to, like, make this investigation, they're all over everybody. Why not Foster? Like, if Foster was part of it, why not Foster? Like, the FBI or whoever was doing the investigating on this thing, like, they're not picking them up on anything.
Well,
I'm sure they're.
I just don't think you can. Sure that if you're the NBA, you cannot afford it. One that was blatantly made public and was all going to come out. You can't then have that being 2, 3, 4, 5 officials. My point of view is, don't know if Foster's involved. These numbers don't smell good, but I would say you were silly to believe it was only one official. That's what I will say. If you think it was just one official that was involved in this kind of setup, and you're telling me Donaghy never had a conversation with any of these other officials and said, I can get you an extra $50K tomorrow night if you do X, Y, Z. And the fact that if they were asked about it and didn't report it, that's within itself pretty bad as well. So I don't think it's a one-off, one referee, everyone else is clean. Like, human nature is human nature, Pro. And it's like saying there's, one guy gets busted for steroids in the NBA. And it's like, that's the only guy. No one else does it. The numbers say that is not right. I just don't think it's one. So Whether it is Foster, that doesn't smell right. 134 phone calls during that period when he was admitted to or got found guilty of gambling, all less than 2 minutes. You know, if they were like 40, 50-minute phone calls, you're kind of like, okay, maybe they got a relationship on the side. Who knows? You know, maybe they're tucking each other in before good night on the road. You know, I don't know. But, you know, 2-minute quick calls kind of doesn't smell very good, bro.
Well, my thing is, Bogues, I'm a big connoisseur watching The Wire. And when they got those burners, Bogues, they actually listened to those phone calls. I'm surprised they didn't listen to those phone calls at Donahue.
Yeah, but I think they probably have. I think there was, you know, I just don't think. I think when these things happen, the NBA is the best at managing crisis, and the NBA is one of they're involved politically heavily. They have senators. You know, it's much like most sports in Australia, the AFL the same, the NRL. You know, sports are involved heavily in politics, right? They can get things squashed and moved, and a little bit of pain. With we're going to get some backlash because there's a crooked referee. But then everything else kind of goes quiet. That would not surprise me whatsoever, bro. That's just the way.
Foster, I'll tell you what, Foster has been as heavily criticized as an official that I've ever seen in any sport.
He has. He 100% has. CP3, you know, the grudge between those two. He's one of the all-timers. I had a few teammates that I didn't really have a problem either way with Foster. I kind of respected him in a way because I knew that this is how he does shit, and don't fuck with him, and you kind of good. If you respected him, he respected you, and you stayed within his guidelines of what respect was. If you didn't, a few teammates I had didn't, he would fuck with you each game. He would definitely is a grudge referee. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. And that's and Rick handled it great because like he's smart. Like I don't understand. I get it when you're gonna lose your shit once in a while in a game, get attacked, maybe even get thrown out. But these guys who go on and on constantly and fuck with referees, you know, I just don't understand the psychology behind it. Knowing that I don't care how nice the person is or how much of a prick they are, they're gonna hold a grudge. So why not just like, all right, you got screwed, whatever, talk to him, you know, put your arm around him, say, hey, what are you seeing here? But versus like going nuts, especially when you can decompress a little bit and then you go to the press conference and then you fucking rip them. I don't understand that psychology at all. I thought Rick was good about just saying, hey, you know, and defending them because they're just smart. But
100%,
these guys
it's
can
smart.
be pricks.
If Foster's refereeing Game 6, it's super smart. He's done a great job buttering the bread. You know, like butter him up a little bit. Scott's great. He refs, you know. So I agree. It's a great move by Rick, and it's a chess move long term for him to stick up for a referee publicly. So, but yeah, interesting numbers around Foster. I mean, like I said, neither here or there. I don't know. Never.
It's a lot of phone calls, but
it is a lot of phone calls. He had the unlimited plan apparently. His minutes were unlimited. So, but yeah, interesting, useful or useless. Fact or fake news? What do you got?
I got two of them, Bogues. First off, 3 years from now, you would want the Orlando Magic. Well, actually, right now, you would rather the Orlando Magic roster than the New York Knicks roster right now. Fact or fake news? With Desmond Bane obviously on it. The roster they got now versus the New York roster right now. You would rather the the Orlando Magic roster than the
today
New York,
or in 3 years?
Knicks roster right now. Well, today.
Today?
Don't forget, Bogues, those guys were monsters when those fucking guys were healthy. And now you add shooting to it. They still have a couple of draft picks that they have, late draft picks that they still have in this year's draft. And I think they might have some free agency money as well.
Yeah, I still like the Knicks a little bit better today because I like Brunson.
With no coach now.
Yeah, I like Brunson.
With no coach.
I like Brunson. I like OG. Towns I'm not sold on. Like Hart. Like Bridges. I think they're a solid group. They play decently together. Maybe a coach opens things up a little bit more and lets them get out there a little bit more. Doesn't play them all high minutes like they were playing. Today I still take the Knicks. I think in 3 years it's a whole different conversation. One thing I found interesting that the Knicks wouldn't even consider KD. I thought that would be a great acquisition for them if they could somehow figure that out. They'd have to probably give up something like Bridges. But Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that too, Bo, before I get to the second one. Like the Durant trade, right? So they're talking about Houston, they're talking about Miami, they're talking about, I think San Antonio's hanging on, but I'm not sure they could get something done. Like, we talked about it earlier a couple of weeks ago about the Durant trade. Like, if you're Houston, do you trade Green? Like, to me, if I'm Houston, I'd give him a pick or two and maybe Jabari Smith and then whatever else I got to give up to make the money work. But look, I'm not a huge Jalen Green fan like he's, Oscar Robertson or anything. But, like, you have this young core. You're turning the corner on being a really good NBA team that could advance in the playoffs. Why would you give your young talent for a guy that will be elite, could play at an elite level for maybe 2 more years, and then still play well? The fucking guy's going to play till he's 45. There's no doubt. But, like, my thing is, like, I'm giving maybe 2 first-round picks for Durant, maybe a middle-of-the-road 4th option player, borderline 3rd option player. That's all I'm giving. I'm not giving Phoenix all these players to get Durant when I only have him for 2 years and I have these young guys. Look, if they wanted, like, Towns for Durant or something like that, if they said, all right, look, we're not going to, but obviously they want draft picks and they want some capital there, but, like if I'm New York and they say, well, we want Towns for Durant, I'm probably doing that in a heartbeat. But I'm not giving up Brunson. I'll give up Hart, but I'm not giving up Brunson. I'm not giving OG, possibly Mitchell Robinson. I don't know. But
Towns,
those 2 guys for sure.
Towns boys Booker. I know that.
Yeah.
But don't ask me why. I don't usually watch ESPN, but I think it's Get Up, the show. They made a valid point. I think it's Legler and a few other guys in the morning. They were talking about that, to your point, no, if I'm a young team, I don't sell the identity of my young team to get KD. But if I can get KD as a 6-man role, now whether he does that, I don't know, like an absolute mercenary where you're not giving up young talent for him and you bring him into, say, a Knicks and you're not giving up a hell of a lot. Not that they have young talent, but that'd be an unbelievable player. You limit his minutes down to, you probably don't have to start him, but if you do, you try to keep him at 20, 25 and finish games. They were talking about Minnesota with Edwards. KD's said he doesn't want to go to Minnesota, but that's where I think it'd be interesting, where you're not selling your soul of young talent. You put him in a team where he can literally move the needle for you and get you over the line. New York would be one. Minnesota would be one. I don't think Denver can't really fit him in with their cap situation, but he's a genuine closer. So as long as it's not like Phoenix have done or Brooklyn have done, where you're giving up a shitload, I would look at it if I was one of those teams. But, I think there will be teams that are blinded by that. And to your point, he's probably got, what is he now, 36, 37?
37.
He's probably got another year or 2 at this level, but albeit he's so long and gangly and can get his shot up against anyone. He could probably, like Pro said, play till he's 45. But how much are you going to sell off your future for a rental of KD for a year or 2, right? Like, that's the question.
If I'm Phoenix, if I'm Houston, like I still see a world where obviously where Durant's a big contributor to what you're doing. But if I'm Houston, like Green's my guy, Halper's my guy. I'm not huge fans of those players. I'm just saying, like, if I'm just looking at it to evaluate the roster, and Durant, like, in the rotation, to me, I think he's a starter. You could play him. Look, I don't want to play a 37-year-old guy as my best player, but I think he could be like the 3rd guy,
exactly,
on a team like
100%.
that. I would definitely play him. I would definitely start him. I'd definitely put him at least on my 3rd guy. And at some points, he's going to be your best player. And some nights, he's going to score 45. He's going to shoot, 58% from the field and do his thing. But, like, if I'm New York, I'll give up Towns to get him. But I'm not going to give you Brunson. I'm not going to give you OG. That's the thing. Like, the talk was at first of getting all these assets. I think you'll give him some draft capital. I'll give him some protected picks. But I'm not giving him unprotected picks. I'm not giving him a bunch of players, to get. Why would you do that? Because now you have Durant for a couple of years.
4 or 5
and then
years
what do you
ago,
do?
Maybe, but yeah.
So Shams tweeted out an hour ago that Durant's preferred destination at the moment is the Spurs. So if you're the Spurs, what do you give up realistically to get him there?
Harrison Barnes and probably someone else.
Probably Sochan's probably the guy I'll give up. I'm not gonna,
Harrison's
I'm
probably
not
in
in
there
love with
because he's got a salary match, right?
the deal, right? So like the main piece would be picks in one player. That's the thing. Like Jabari Smith from Houston, that would be the player. The player in San Antonio would be Sochan, the guy that has some value. That's not this like all-star juggernaut, but he's also he's a starter. He's a good player.
Castle and Wemby probably the untouchables on that squad, correct?
So Vassell, maybe?
Who's that?
Castle and Wemby probably.
Yeah,
the
and
untouchables.
I think even Castle could be moved, but I wouldn't move him for Durant. But
Vassell, yeah.
I think Vassell would probably, like, if I'm Phoenix, I'd probably go with Vassell and say, look, we want Vassell in the deal. And I think San Antonio might do it just because, look, they've got some guys, Keldon Johnson and Wemby and Castle, those guys.
Fox.
So
Fox
probably
is there as well. They got a squad. Fox is there too.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, they got a squad.
So it'll be Harrison Barnes. It will be either Sochan. See, Keldon Johnson would make sense because the money, and he could score a little bit. I'm not a huge Keldon Johnson fan either, but he could score, and he's locked into a deal, and they can get to that. I would say if I'm San Antonio, I'd rather give up Keldon Johnson. Keldon Johnson would be the first guy I give up. The second guy I would give up is probably Sochan. Third guy, Vassell, but that's interchangeable. So it'll be interesting.
They're going to throw in a Harrison Barnes contract though to make it match, right? Because
for sure. No, Harrison's in there for sure. But Harrison's not going to be the feature guy.
Yeah, he's a money throwing.
Yeah, he's the money guy. But he could also play. Like Harrison's a starter in the league, and he's very productive.
He's a role player.
But
Phoenix,
the main focus would be those other guys. But yeah, you're right.
So basically, fake news on that previous one, just so we can close that out. I'll take New York's roster today over Orlando's.
Okay, I'll take Orlando's. Also, because it will drip into 3 years from now. So,
you said today, motherfucker. Don't change that shit. In 3 years, I said.
I'm not doing that. I'm not
in 3 years, I'll take Orlando. In 3 years, I'll take Orlando. Today,
but I always do it.
I'm just circling back to that. I'm circling back to that social media post of pros fact or fake news. It's just that kid that just like
fuck that kid, all right? fuck that kid. His mother's bringing him Fruit Loops. He's 35 years old without a fucking job. So that fucker will be happy. All right, the last one, folks, with the whole New York Knicks coaching deal. Gilbert Arenas, I don't know if you heard it, had a decent conspiracy theory. Now, I don't think it's right, but it gets you thinking a little bit, though. He's saying that, how they're just going to everybody, hey, we want to talk to your coach, we want to talk to your coach, we want to talk to your coach. He's saying he's doing that. He's saying that they're doing that on purpose to get Rick Brunson the job. Fact or fake news?
You mean to say, no one wants to talk to us, we just got to hire this guy now?
Yeah, to keep Jalen happy, to keep him in town. Fact or fake news? That's
it. Would be the most Nick thing to do, and I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Surely they're not that silly. No offense to Rick, but I mean, surely that does not end well. I'm going to fake news it, but oh man, that would just. Did you see the other meme that's about the Doc Rivers that we sent in the chat? Was that in the chat?
Yeah, absolutely.
It said they what did it say? The Milwaukee Bucks have given permission to the Knicks to talk to Doc Rivers, and the Knicks declined.
No. I think it's fake news as well. Like, that's the thing about the NBA, Bogues. Like, people think, I've seen this happen with Durant when Durant was a free agent. Carmelo is going to be a free agent. That they hire these like workout guys to be on staff of these teams, that these guys are going to go there because you hire a certain coach. First of all, that's never happened in NBA history and that's happened about 15 times where they hire people like, it's like college where you're going to like hire somebody's dad and the fucking guy's going to go there. Well, like actually that happened with the Knicks, but that's another story. But like, that doesn't happen, Bogues. Like, that doesn't happen. You hire somebody like Look, if you want to hire Rick Brunson, you hire Rick Brunson as the coach. But I'm just saying, like, I don't think that's gonna make Jalen Brunson want to stay or leave. You know what wants players to want to stay or leave is the money that they get, the role that they have is one, the money that they get, the city that they have, and then obviously the team, do you have a chance to win? Which I think that's probably on most players' list, probably last on that list. But yeah, I say fake news, but I thought that was an interesting conspiracy theory. I mean, Gilbert comes up with like 2 good ones a week, but I thought that was a pretty decent one.
Yeah, good old Gilbert Arenas. Funny podcast, by the way, for the most part, but some of it gets pretty wacky.
Yeah.
So
I like McCants with that big ass crown that he wears.
Yeah, all Hall of Famer McCants in his own mind. I've seen a few of those.
McCants is the best.
Yeah, he's funny. All right, Pro, we'll see you next week. We will either do this before Game 7. If there is a Game 7, we'll do it post Game 7. But we're just trying to fit in with Pro's schedule, so anything for you, man.
Oh, God. I'm going to see Jock again. So, hey, if you need anything in Houston, just let me know. You want me to send anything back?
Send a few rockets.
Before the tariffs start.
Send a few rockets out here. Well, I actually don't. There could be a world war, so let's just stay away from rocket jokes.
That's
It's below the belt.
That's a rough one.
All right, man. We'll see you next week. Just to finish off on some NBL news, breaking just as we got on the podcast, Zylan Cheatham, who was formerly with the New Zealand Breakers, has played overseas, has been signed by the Adelaide 36ers. So last week I said they're the most expensive roster ever assembled in NBL history. They've now added another very, very good import. So it just goes up even more. They're setting the bar, making sure that next season or within the next 10 years, whoever wants to chase being the most expensive team in NBL history, they're setting the bar high. They are stacked, absolutely stacked. Now, interesting with Cheatham, he's not traditionally a 3-point shooting big. But with the New Zealand Breakers, he shot it at his career best in the low 40% mark. He's a career 30% 3-point shooter. Different phases of his career, didn't shoot it well. Shot it really well in the NBL, so I don't know if it's the air or he felt comfortable here. But it was small sample size, only 17 games. He's going to need to shoot it because they got 3 bigs that don't spread the floor on that roster that are all going to have to play at least 25 to 30 each unless some shit's going to hit the fan. Humphries is going to need touches. Montrez is going to need touches. Cheatham's going to need touches. Bryce is a guy that's generally been a 70% usage guy on every team he's been on in the NBL, which is one team, but every different squad every season. Then you got DJ who needs touches. It's going to be all on our good friend Flint Cameron's shoulders to have to be playing the point, which he hasn't really played in the NBL, played it in college. Pressure's on him to make sure that he's trying to keep everybody healthy and happy, and they are stacked. There's no doubt there, but how it all fits is one for the coach there in Adelaide.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Zylan, kind of comes in as a bit of a safety option if things with Trez and Isaac isn't working. But a lot of pressure on Mike to kind of build an offense where all these guys can kind of get the looks they want to get to the space they want and it be successful. To be honest, I don't see it working. Again, I thought there was already too many kind of guys that demanded the ball already. You add another piece. I think Cheatham was good in New Zealand where he didn't demand the ball at times, but do you bring him off the bench? Do you start him? Do you bring Trez off the bench in a 6-man?
You can't start Cheatham.
That's what I mean. So I think there's going to be a lot of flip-flopping kind of throughout the season where the lineup changes quite a bit, which then is a risk in itself because then you got guys not knowing what their role is. Are they going to get unhappy if they're starting one game and now you're playing 18 to 25 off the bench? There's a lot to kind of balance here, and it's going to be interesting to see how it kind of all unfolds in those first couple of weeks of the season.
So Bryce is the clear number 1 option. Who's the number 2 option on this team?
I think if I'm the coach, I think it's got to be DJ, in my opinion, just because of the money and you've made him the kind of face in Adelaide. I think after that, it starts getting super tricky. But I think your number 1 option has to be Bryce, but off the ball, put the ball in Flynn's hands and have Bryce coming off those pin downs and different things. And then DJ is kind of like that guy that if Bryce starts seeing doubles or starts seeing that extra bit of help, you got DJ in the corner or spacing, circling up on the wing. After that, I've got no idea because you could start Cheatham at the 4. You could bring him off the bench.
Yeah.
I don't know what you do.
I think after Bryce, it's open slather.
Yeah.
Because Trez is not going to be happy playing. Trez is not going to be a screen setter.
No.
Space the floor, offensive rebound for us, mate. You're not getting touches. That's going to last about 2 weeks. He's going to lose his mind.
Yeah.
Humphreys historically needs touches to feel engaged in the game.
Yeah.
Zylan's got touches in most teams that he's been at. So it's a good puzzle to have because you've got so much talent, but it's not as easy as that. It's not a plug and play thing. There were rumours they were going after Hurt, probably a better option, but the price I think of finally got to Adelaide. They lost. They finally that money bag. They were tipping it out and it was getting to the coins.
Yeah.
But like I said, I could give Adelaide shit, but they're putting their money where their mouth is. They're spending and saying, we're not going to be content with subpar years. We're going to go above and over what we have to spend to be good. So credit to them. I mean, they're putting their money where their mouth is, and it's going to be an interesting season for that dynamic.
Yeah, and it's huge for the league because like it's very rare you can see this much star power on a single team, and it's going to create some awesome matchups across the league against other teams. But I mean, they have so many options here. You just hope like all the guys kind of going into this season have the right attitude with it because they need to understand like you got 4 or 5 guys here that can all put up 20, 25 plus any given name. So there's got to be an understanding that like, hey, tonight might not be my night, but that doesn't mean you need to switch off. So guys like historically DJ Humphs, those kind of guys can't get too pouty or too down in the dumps if it's not their game or whatever. So yeah, it will be very interesting, but awesome for the league.
Yeah, it will be very interesting to watch. They're definitely on paper, they're title favourites.
Have to be.
The Kings have been title favourites on paper before, and that hasn't ended well. So generally, those ones are hard because you can't write the names on a piece of paper and put it into the jump ball and say, "Hey, we're the best team. We're going to beat you." It just doesn't work like that. So, will be interesting to watch. Ben Henschel officially withdraws from the NBA draft. I believe college in the nil is where he's going to go. I believe. Is it Florida?
So there's all this stuff coming out about his 1.7 GPA that is going to potentially halter that whole process.
Oh, shit,
so
you're making $5 million a year. You can find a pretty good academic advisor or teacher to homeschool you for $500K a year if you need to spend it.
For sure. So I've just heard there's some hurdles there with that. Wow. So potentially, like I've heard that Perth are probably going to go all in and try and get him back there.
I'd love to see him back in the league. I think he's a fantastic young player.
But it'll be interesting because he's got options, but I don't think the draft was really going to be ever an option for him.
No, yeah, I didn't. Yeah, the GPA thing, I saw it, but I forgot about that. Florida was where he was linked. I know someone at a big school, Kentucky, a few other schools that had their eyes on him, but they have now put their roster together and he's off their list. So I think it's at a bad time of the year because it's starting to dry up. But there'll be a school that'll find money for him because he would not dominate college, but he'd be a very, very good player.
100%.
Just he plays very hard and he had nights where he really, really dominated quarters at times. Just a young player with consistency. But hope to see him back in the NBL. If not, go make some money, young fella in Neil, and then come back and join us a couple of years later. NBL to Channel 7, interesting. Don't really know what the concept is, whether it's going to be, a trial and error thing, whether they do one a week, whether it's live. I think the Channel 10's been good at times, but then also putting on telecasts at non-prime times, I don't think helped the game.
Yeah.
And I wonder if it'll be on the prime channel. So that's what's been rumoured right now with Channel 7. Goes back to the glory days. They initially had, when basketball was in its heyday, I think it was Channel 7.
Yep.
Then it went to Channel 10. I think Luke was actually tells a funny story about him buying the Wildcats off Stokes back then. Lee was flying, it was on TV, and then as soon as he bought it off him, Stokes pulled it off the network. So pulled the NBL off the network. So Luke was like, made some things tricky there to try to find other avenues, but he thought he bought the club thinking that they'd be on free to air. So a long, long time ago it was there, but I think it's a good thing if we can get on free to air in a prime kind of time slot. That's not just an afterthought.
Yeah, 100%. It's like only good for the growth of the game and gets it, brings those casual fans in, and it's easier to access than an ESPN or a KO Sports. So you really have to kind of hunt and like buy some sort of subscription if you want to watch the NBL currently. So I think if you're really trying to expand into like, AFL, NRL territory in terms of fan bases, it's got to be on some kind of free to air network. Not every game, but like your primetime games throughout the week.
Game of the week.
Yeah.
And they should just put the schedule together with having whatever that big rivalry game is that weekend. Make sure it's on I don't know, Saturday night, whatever night it is. I think that would be ideal. Most people are at home, at least older people, 40s and above, aren't out partying and stuff. Saturday night would be a good slot. Sunday arvos are a decent slot as well. But I feel like a Saturday game sometime would be quite good.
Yeah, especially if you can market it as like, Sunday night basketball or something like that, just so like your casuals can get around a night of the week. Like America do it super well with their football and like
always the same time, right?
Always the same time, always the same night, and it becomes like a family kind of tradition thing. And like it's so hard here in Australia when you're competing with AFL, NRL, these big sports. You got to do something to kind of like wedge yourself in there. So. Yeah,
let's hope it works out. Only good for the game if we can get more games on free-to-air TV. That's it for this week. We'll see you all next week.
Before we wrap up, Bogues, I got to get your opinion on the Perth Wildcats rebrand. There's been a lot of rhetoric online. A lot of fans unhappy
with you mean the logo?
With the new look, the new rebrand. People upset. It's been comparisons to like rebranding the Spurs or the Celtics, So what were your initial...
Spurs or the Celtics is a bit of a stretch.
Well, this is just Instagram comments.
I think Mark Arena's in a tough spot. I think even if that logo was a 10 out of 10, he'd get shat on.
Yeah.
Because I think the Bryce thing is just too fresh.
Yeah.
So I think, look, the logo, my opinion, don't love it, don't hate it, don't really care. It's the Wildcats. But I can see our fans are a little riled up, but you got to move on sometimes. We've seen this historically in numerous sports. Logo changes are hated, and then within 3-4 months, the season starts, everyone forgets about it. But I think this is all, in 2 weeks' time, he could say, hey, we're giving every season ticket holder 50% rebate. They'll be like, fuck you, Mark.
Yeah.
Because the Bryce thing's still so fresh in their mind.
Yeah.
So I think he can't really, I would have waited maybe for the next off season. But one thing I've learned about Mark and speaking to him is he's not afraid of bad PR and negative pushback. If he thinks it's the right decision, he's going to do it. And he's learned the hard way that sometimes has ramifications in the NBL, but he's okay to live with it. So he's a big boy, so he's got to deal with it. But I know the fans out west are pretty rolled up still from the Bryce thing.
Yeah, and he's definitely owned it. He's owned the negative feedback and just said that like it will grow.
Yeah,
it'll grow on people. It'll be fine. Yeah.
It's a logo at the end of the day.
Yeah, 100%. But it just caused a lot of stir up. And like you can look at when the Jackies released their team name and the logo.
It. Like, what the hell was this shit?
People hated it, and now it's beloved. So definitely, but it was just funny to see the uproar. Like the Perth fans are going through it at the moment for sure.
They should also spell Perth with 2 Fs. That should be part of the rebrand. PERFF, Perth Wildcats. I know the fans will love that one. So see you all next week. Last episode next week before it all gets shut down and the power cord gets unplugged. So make sure you tune in for that, and we'll see what Pro's got prepared for us.